are looking for. That means that today, that God is okay with you, that God is not angry with you, that God is not upset with you, but God is very pleased with you. We showed where that word goodwill literally means that that God is now pleased with humanity. So He has no qualms with us anymore. And so that's sort of the good news message. I want to go to Romans chapter 1, verse 16, which has sort of been our key scripture for this whole series. Paul makes the announcement, "For I am not ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ, for it is the power of God unto salvation." We've talked about the gospel. We've talked about the good news. What does that message mean? And what we just said, peace and goodwill towards men. We talked about sin. Sin is dead. If you look through Romans chapter 5, chapter 6, chapter 7, Paul talks about sin. He talks about the flesh and how all that, and God is no longer, that our righteousness does not come from our good actions. He concludes in Romans chapter 3, verse 28, Paul comes to the summation of all his revelation. He draws his conclusions. Paul makes it clear, I did not get my revelation from another man or from a teacher or from a church. My revelation of Jesus Christ came from Jesus Christ Himself. I got a direct revelation on this gospel message that I'm talking about. He said, this didn't come from another man. And he said, so I have concluded, after putting all this together, my summation of all of this is that no flesh will be justified by works. He says, by faith we receive justification, and by faith alone. He said, I conclude. And that faith, justification comes from faith apart from deeds. So it has nothing to do with your physical actions, good or bad. We want to harp on the bad. We want to talk about the bad and the sin and the different things. But let me remind you that your very best, according to the book of Isaiah, is filthy rags. That your best day that you've ever had on this planet was nothing. And it says, I believe that even our best days, our best actions had to be nailed to the cross of Jesus Christ. Because even in those, it doesn't measure up to the standard that God put on us to achieve righteousness and holiness and all of that. Paul said, I am not ashamed of this message. We talked about that. We talked about that we are now into a prison of righteousness. That means that once we accepted Jesus Christ, once you become a born-again Christian, once you took that on, you signed away your rights of your identity. That means that we allow God to now define us. That means that we accept God's opinion over our own. That means that who God says that I am, that's who I am.